Good morning, Bardstown and Nelson County, and welcome to Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford with you on this overcast but still pleasant Wednesday morning in beautiful downtown Bardstown. Margie, how are you this morning?
Well, I made it here, and I found a good parking spot, so I'd say the day has started out right.
Well, I found a pretty good spot, though I did have to parallel park. So that always...
That is a no-no in my book. No parallel parking. No parallel parking.
Well, anyway, it's still a pretty day outside, even though I don't think the sun's going to make it out today. But I'll be happy if it does. Anyway,
just as long as it doesn't rain.
Well, I'm not sure rain's in the forecast. But,
good.
But I don't know. The way my grass is growing, it could not rain for a while. Though the only benefit, though, is that my son is home from college for the summer, and so he gets to do the zero-turn mowing. So, which he's kind of missed. He likes to
do the whizzing around. Huh?
Well, that's kind of one of the things. A lot of men won't let their wives use a zero-turn mower because it's actually fun to mow. I've known lots of guys say, "No, I'll do all the mowing. I'm not going to let my wife on it. She'll never let me mow again." But now my wife has no interest in mowing the grass.
Oh, well, so. Count me among that number.
All right, Margie. Well, we have a very special studio guest who hadn't been with us for a while, but we're very happy to have her back.
Hi.
Kate Broaddus, Mud Broaddus.
Yes.
And Kate, you are... I can't remember your title, but I think you're director of CASA.
Yes, executive director of CASA of the Lincoln Trail.
We have expanded.
Oh, okay.
New name.
New name, and it sounds like expanded territory.
Yes, we now serve Nelson County, Marion County, and Washington County, and soon to be Taylor and Greene County.
Wow. That's well, and now, Margie, of course, Margie's always keeps me informed on CASA.
Yes.
And I've learned a tremendous amount from Margie, but tell our listeners who may wonder what in the world is CASA.
CASA stands for Court-Appointed Special Advocates. We're a nonprofit. Now, CASA of the Lincoln Trail is a local nonprofit that serves Nelson, Marion, and Washington, but CASAs are really around the state now. We're a 501c3 who serves the local judge in the local district or family court. In essence, we recruit and train community volunteers to serve and speak for abused and neglected children in the court system.
And they're there of no fault of their own, and
exactly,
and it's a tremendous service. These volunteers who take on these roles too.
Yes, exactly. So the children are victims of child abuse or neglect, and in Kentucky, the children very rarely will actually enter the court system. Court happens when you're in school, and there's a lot of court dates that happen from the beginning to the end. So if you pulled them out of school every time, they'd miss quite a lot of school.
Sure.
However, what ends up happening then is a group of adults stand in a little semicircle in front of the judge, and we all make decisions on the behalf of these children who are not there to really tell the judge what they want. So CASA is a way for the judge to hear the wishes of the child. So when a CASA volunteer says, "I speak for the child," they by law speak for the child. That is their designated role in the courtroom.
And so that their interaction is with the child, and and the whole goal is to get a sense of the child's welfare.
Yes, exactly. And they make recommendations that are in the best interest of the child.
Right.
So everyone who goes to the court will, for a child abuse or neglect case, will bring a court report. At some point in court, we're all bringing court reports for the judge. Most of the court reports read very clinical, where it's just kind of an update on what mom and dad are doing on their case plan or what they're not doing, or how many drug screens they were asked to report to, how many did they actually go to. It is only the CASA court report that will have two specific sections. One is specifically titled Child Wishes, and that's a paragraph or two where the volunteer interprets the child's wishes. If they're very young, or if they're a teenager, they're right verbatim what the teenager would like the judge to know. And a second section is called Family Strengths, and that's when they identify the strengths that are found within the family. A lot of times I say just for simplicity's sake, that it's the CASA volunteers court report that brings the humanity of the child back to the court.
Right.
So
right.
it's their court report where you're reminded that this is a child that we are in fact talking about.
Right, and the CASA volunteers are essentially, and I've heard this phrase before, the eyes and ears of the judge who's working with this case.
Yes, they are. And so the families are aware of that we work with, that we report directly to the judge. CASA is the only nonprofit in the state of Kentucky that allows volunteers to enter the official court record and make recommendations for the benefit of the judge. Everyone in the courtroom will have a lot of red tape around them, and that's by design. If you have a system that can remove your children possibly forever, there should be a lot of red tape there.
Sure.
That's probably as big government can get. So there's a lot of rules and regulations about when and how people make recommendations, but that can actually have an inverse effect in court and hinder progress if you have to wait so long before you can tell the judge something, but you know it at this point in time. It would benefit the judge to know that information.
Right.
So CASA is the only individual in court that has no red tape around what they do. So they're the free agent. They can tell the judge what the judge needs to know at any time that they think it would benefit the child for the judge to know that information.
Wow, that has to be just so tremendously valuable to have in the court system for the judge to be able to have that advocate there representing the child.
Yeah, I would say so. I entered Judge Kelly's courtroom about almost 10 years ago, almost a decade ago, as the CASA executive director, but I'd been in his courtroom for a few years before that as a state worker, and he inherited me as the executive director. He'd had CASA in his courtroom. Uh-huh. However, in our new court systems in Marion and Washington, where we serve Judge Anderson and Judge Hall, we've gotten to watch as they've gotten accustomed to CASA being on cases, how that has changed how they view court cases. So we've got to watch them be a little tentative in assigning CASA to now giving us a huge waiting list. And I really like to say, or like to think, that it's because they see the benefit. Once you start to see how much information a CASA volunteer can give you, you then start to think about, I would like them on all these other cases. So it's been really fascinating to watch these newer judges first tentatively adopt CASA and now very ferociously wanting to know when will we have more volunteers, because we now have a waiting list for those courtrooms.
Wow.
Well, I mean, CASA was started by a judge.
Yes.
A family court judge who wanted more information and couldn't get it.
Yes, that's a fun fact. Good information to bring up, Margie, because I think that really serves to the reason why judges buy into CASA so heartedly, is that in the 1970s, a judge in Washington State, Judge Sukamp, had the same issues our judges have today. Back then, the child welfare system did not exist how we know it to exist today. Foster homes didn't really exist the way we know they do today. The child welfare laws weren't really in place, so it was kind of a cowboy land. Guardian ad litems are attorneys for children, and I believe that CASA might predate most guardian ad litems in most states. The concept was there, but states had not really ratified or adopted the concept yet. So in the 1970s, Judge Sukamp was faced with the same issue our judges are, where the early state social service workers, social workers, reporting on the children had too many cases and not enough time. And at the end of the day, it's the judge who has to make that decision, those rulings on the benefit of the children. And so stressed and a little overwhelmed in this new family court, district court land of being a judge, he started to lose sleep over whether or not he was making the right decisions on behalf of these children, because he just didn't have enough information. So he developed the concept of a court-appointed special advocate, a community volunteer who would only carry one case never be overwhelmed because they carry one case by law, and could give the judge as much information as they need to make the right choice for their most vulnerable or neediest cases.
Right.
Yes, and we started our CASA in 1985, which we were the second one in the state in the same year, actually.
Yes, and within a 2-week period, actually, CASA of River Region, which is Jefferson County or Louisville's CASA, filed their paperwork about 2 weeks before we did. But their judge and our judge, the Honorable Tom Dawson, they both had the concept at the same time. They jointly brought CASA to the state as a mutual effort. And so our CASA gets to carry the honorific of being the second CASA in the state of Kentucky.
Well, that was real forward thinking, I think. And of course, Judge Dawson recognized the need, just like I'm sure other judges did, but he took action.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's our 40th year.
That's hard to believe.
That's
But Margie,
hard.
you've been with CASA since the start?
Yep, started out in the library of the Bardstown High School.
Is that right?
That's where we met. I mean, that's where we came together for the first time to say that we wanted to start that. And the rest of the time was in Judge Dawson's kitchen for a long time.
His
So,
daughter,
yeah.
Virginia, can tell stories about watching them meet at their house.
That's right. We were in the kitchen. We get score on a cup of coffee occasionally. So, but yes, it was very forward thinking, and everything. It was all volunteer. Everything was volunteers. I mean, our training, we were volunteer training and everything. In fact, I think the first time we got any money whatsoever was Kenny Rapier scored us some money from one of the factories, like a $5,000 grant or something, which was helpful. But that was our first money that we ever got. But everything was volunteer.
My first day on the job in 2016, the board chair at that time was Roland Gabbard, and they had just gotten their first official office, and he was very excited to take me to this office. And by office, I mean like a place where they could have board meetings and I could train volunteers. And it was over in the old unemployment office, and he opened the door and he said, okay, he didn't even go inside with me. He said, okay, I got to get to work. He was a therapist in private practice and had a client waiting for him. And I said, okay, well, thank you. And I walked into an empty room that had exactly one filing cabinet. And in that filing cabinet consisted of their nearly 30-some years of work. And part of that, as I sat and went through that filing cabinet, sitting in the floor, going through the filing cabinet my first day of the job, I found some of their earliest budgets. And one of their very first budgets from like 1988, I believe, which is the year I was born, was $800 for the whole year. And our printer ink costs more than that now. So it was just pretty wild to see just that kind of history unfold.
Well, when you came on board and we hired you for that position, we met wherever we could. And we met at the Christian Church, First Christian Church, a lot. We did not have an office. We had a filing cabinet and a desk at the Civic Center. That was it.
Yes.
We had the filing cabinet and the desk at the Civic Center. That was where records were kept. But we met wherever we could. And so to say that we existed on a shoestring is a vast understatement. But with Kate came along a change in the organization, because before then we were really just floating out there. I mean, we did have some guidance, and we were serving children.
You were.
We were serving children with volunteers, but the type of bookwork that was kept was not exactly the same. So when I'm saying book work, I'm talking about what we refer to as red tape.
Right.
But I mean, there was a lot of forms and things that we fill out now that we didn't have to fill out then.
Right.
So it is progressed along.
Yeah, I would say that first year, it was Margie, Roland, and Judy Bevan, actually, working with me to legitimize the program, as we called it, because the world of CASA in our years since our infancy had really moved to this new level of standard.
Well, there wasn't even a state organization up to that time.
Exactly. And at that point, there was what was called the Kentucky CASA Network was being developed, and that's our state office. Now, we're our own individual 501c3, but per state law, we have to be a member of good standing of our state membership. And that state membership was being restarted, I would say, about the same time we were restarting. They were probably a year and a half ahead of us, but they were moving very fast. There was a very fast clip of getting things kind of pulled under, making sure that if you were a volunteer or you were a child, it didn't matter which court system you served or were a part of, you could expect the same standard out of a CASA program. And we were serving children, but that red tape she talks about, that is the part of that kind of legitimizing and bringing some respect to what CASA does. You know, you have a state office that creates policies that ensure that across the board we're doing our background checks the way we should, that we're training the way we should. That's legitimizing this concept of a volunteer who enters the courtroom, and it brings a lot more respect. There's more governorship around CASA as a whole. And so that first year was really the year that we got on board, and it was a lot of work.
A lot of work.
I was the only paid person, but I would say that Margie probably put in as many hours as I did that year. I can't tell you how many times her and I were on the phone. In fact, she's one of the very few phone numbers I have memorized because I had to call her so many times those first years at the program. But I would say very quickly we got the program in ship-top shape, kind of developed the things that we needed to do, and I would say we're a very strong program for that today. I'm very proud of the work our volunteers do. I was proud of the volunteer work back then, but the work that we do now is so much more involved in what is happening in court than what we were then. I would say back then we more were observers of the court process, but volunteers, unless they had a very strong disposition and a can-do attitude, like Sandy Aiken, who was our longest volunteer, they weren't really getting into the mix of what was happening with the attorneys or with the state. They were there to observe. They were reporting on the well-being of the children, but they weren't objecting or getting into the mix of things. And now I would say that they do just as much mix-in as anyone else who's in court. And again, they're a volunteer. But they're doing that because I think we have stronger training now. They have better guidance. We have an executive director and a volunteer coordinator, which, you know, we didn't have back then. They just had me. So if I was overwhelmed and busy with the board side of things, that's the type of volunteer coordinator that they would have.
Right.
But now they have a dedicated staff member who helps them and guides them in their work, is their mentor, and they go to court all the time with a buddy system. So I would say what we do now is vastly stronger than what we were doing then, and it's really because of just the dedication of getting into the mix and making sure that the program, as we call it, legitimizing, but really it was we were getting up to speed on what CASA was doing in the state.
Right.
That's really made a very strong program, and our volunteers do so much more now than they've ever done in the past.
We'll talk a little bit about the expansion of our duties into other counties and how that occurred.
Okay.
And how you're doing that.
So Marion, Washington had been occasionally their social workers or their children, if court systems get overwhelmed, surrounding counties might pick up cases to help. And so occasionally, children in Marion and Washington might have a CASA that's really from another county, but is helping to serve in some capacity.
Sure.
They never had a dedicated CASA program. Well, their Commonwealth attorney approached our state director, because Commonwealth attorneys serve many. They serve
Sure.
a district. So they approached our state director and said, why do some of my counties have a CASA and others don't? Marion, Washington, Taylor, Greene, they have the same judges, no CASA. But some of her other counties would have CASAs. And at that time, we were considering expansion into those counties because of the cultural overlap between Nelson, Marion, and Washington. And one of our primary grants, the United Way grant, had asked us to consider expanding. They had provided grant money for Nelson County specifically for many, many years, probably upwards of 20 years.
Right.
And they are the Tri-County United Way. They serve Marion, Washington, and Nelson County, and they wanted us to consider expansion into these counties. So kind of serendipitously at about the same time that they had approached us, and we were starting to think about this and consider, the Commonwealth attorney approached our state director about Marion, Washington, Taylor, and Greene, and so that's just when the wheels started moving. We did a needs assessment, and that's where you complete an official assessment of the potential expansion counties to see what is the need, how many children go unserved in those communities every year. And Marion and Washington are vastly smaller than Nelson County, so their courtrooms are smaller, but there was still upwards of 200 children a year that did not have a CASA, did not have the possibility of a CASA.
Wow.
In the 40 years that CASA has been in Kentucky, a CASA program had never officially served those counties. So in 2020, we all remember what time that was, we started expansion. Now, then the court system's closed for 5 months because of what was going on with COVID. And so our expansion was delayed a bit. And then when the court systems reopened after 5 months, there was a historic backlog of cases. So Judge Anderson, the judge that had officially invited us into Marion, Washington, she asked us, maybe just wait a bit. And so we waited for them to get caught up. And when she opened the door for us, because you have to have a judge invite you into the courtroom, we started that process. And coming up this August, we will officially be serving her courtrooms for 3 years. And so very exciting to have that anniversary come up with an official volunteer coordinator who serves those courtrooms as well, and volunteers who carry cases in those courtrooms. So it's very exciting. Very quickly, we went from being this kind of small, we always thought of ourselves as this little mom and pop nonprofit over here, to being a regional nonprofit with a future expansion on the horizon. So in the next year, we'll be expanding into Taylor and Greene as well. So just a very exciting time.
Well, talk to us about, how CASA is funded.
Oh, great question. I would say there is a common misconception that CASA is funded kind of quasi by the government. Think of, maybe like a community action program where they might have some grant money, they might have an angel donor or two, but primarily they're funded through the government. That is not CASA. And I get where the misconception comes from, because we serve the courtroom. And so, you think because we fall under the Justice Cabinet, we enter the courtroom, you think the government must be funding us in some way. But no, they are not. We are funded by 3 primary streams. That is grant money, fundraising, and community donations. And in years in which the economy is harder on people, we have to make difficult decisions at the nonprofit because we experience that hardship ourselves. Right now, just like everyone in their homes where groceries are more expensive, well, paper products and ink and just the cost of doing business is more expensive, but also donations are down. Grants are down because they're preparing also to weather a hard economic storm. And so the program has to make decisions that are sometimes difficult to make to weather that storm with it, because the only way that we're funded is through our grants, community donations and fundraising. And fundraising might as well be called a community donation because it's the community that buys your tickets and comes and supports your events. That is the way that we are funded through those three primary streams. And I'd say that we work very hard at the board level to count every penny to make sure that it is wisely spent and that we're not going off kilter on our budget. And in the upcoming year, we'll make some tough decisions on what's a need versus a want in order to make sure that we're also prepping to go through a year where we know grants will probably be lower because they typically are when years are harder economically.
Well, it's hard to believe, Margie, that it's 40 years since CASA began.
It absolutely is, and I've been on the board that long, so.
Well, it shows your dedication to.
Well,
to
it's
the group
it's something you know, we all would like to think that there's something that we can do to make our community better, and there are lots of opportunities, but not always things that you can do as a plain ordinary citizen walking down the street. But the thought of children in the system in the court system, through no fault of their own, or here are these poor kids, they have no one to speak up for them. And I mean, that's an easy call. Yeah, I want to do something to help that, and I've always felt that way. So I think that anything that we can do to help those children maybe earns us maybe a little star in our crown if we make it to heaven. So, yeah.
I would say so, and I could count on probably one hand in my near decade with CASA of how many meetings Margie has missed. So when she's been with us for 40 years, she's been a hard worker for those 40 years and very dedicated. And I would agree with her. I mean, there's days, even now, all these years later, that I rarely go to court now because, you know, I'm the boring person. I keep the lights on. I mentor my staff primarily, but I have staff who go to court. They're now the experts for the courtroom. Occasionally, though, I'll go for a case that might be a little difficult, and they might need someone who has longer experience in court to assist. And we had a day just like that this past Monday where I was so proud of our CASA volunteer. It's a situation where we disagree with the state. State disagrees with us. When I say state, I mean the state social service workers or the state social worker. And it's not uncommon that we disagree in court. A lot of times we see the same thing and we have a different opinion about it. But this is a pretty serious disagreement where we thought one of our parents who has done a lot to put themselves in a good situation is currently in a facility where their children could come and be with them. And we think, what better place for her to learn to raise her children than in a facility surrounded by experts who are helping her. Now, the state disagrees and did not want the children returned. And we had a pretty difficult case in court. And a little unexpectedly, our volunteer was called to testify. Now, we talk every time we go to court, but there's a difference between standing in front of the judge in a little semicircle and we all kind of telling our recommendations and then being officially sworn in by the judge that you're going to sit in the testimony booth and give testimony that then puts you up for cross-examination. So you're going to go in front of one attorney and the other one's going to cross-examine you and might ask some difficult questions. And these attorneys that for the most part, are pretty laid back in court. You're going to see them in their full, authoritative position, and that can be difficult. And I was very proud that the volunteer took it in stride, did an excellent job on a case where they were having to kind of walk a minefield among all these kind of big players in court. And in the end, the judge agreed with the CASA volunteer. And that's one of those days where, even after all these years, that is one of those gold stars where you think, okay, we did something really good today. We successfully navigated a complicated case. We watched our volunteer, who's just a community volunteer, get sworn in and testify as an official witness to a proceeding, who had a very strong court report that led into this testimony, then handled the questions like an expert, like a pro, like they'd done this their whole lives. And then for the judge to agree that it is a rarity that we have a parent who does exactly what you hope all the parents do. Get into treatment, find a program that your children can come and be with you. That's very rare in the state. Those don't exist a lot. And to just continuously, throughout the time that they've been there, ask for their children to come to them. So they've been very engaged, and you don't always see that. You don't always see your parents that involved or engaged in the case process. And so for the judge to agree with the volunteer, and for the volunteer just to have done such a good job, those are one of those days where you leave and you're thinking, okay, today I earned one of those gold stars, because we did something really good here. And hopefully our hope, and it's our hope for every case, is that this is the case where this family is going to learn how to be a family successfully together. They're going to learn how to break generational cycles, and that they're going to be okay, and that we helped to bring their children back to them.
Sure.
And we get to celebrate them because they did choose, they chose the right path. They chose the path that we don't often see in our cases. And so that was just one of those days where you think, okay, today was a good day at work.
That's great. And, we were talking about how CASA is funded. So a big part of that is our fundraising here in the community.
Yes.
So now talk to us about that, about what you're doing in that area and what people can do to help, and how critical it is.
Okay, can we get a commercial break in, then we can come back?
Absolutely, you're the boss. Go right ahead.
All right.
All right, and then we'll talk about the fundraising aspect and how the community can help out your mission.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, we're
Thank
listening to Bradford and Brooks and our very special guest, Kate Broaddus, who's the Executive Director of Lincoln Trail, CASA, is that right?
CASA of the Lincoln Trail.
Okay, I had it backwards. All right, we'll be back in just a few moments. Stay tuned for more. All right, you're back with Bradford and Brooks. Jim Brooks and Margie Bradford with you this morning, and we'll be with you till the top of the hour. And stay tuned to WBRT for the best in state and local news. All right, and our special studio guest with us today is Kate Broaddus, who's Executive Director of CASA of Lincoln Trail.
Yes.
I got the name right, finally. All right, and we've been discussing CASA, which is a program, the court-appointed special advocate program that does so much good in the court system. And we've been talking fundraising. And I'm sure Kate will also discuss the need for volunteers as well. But fundraising is always important when you have a 501c3, a nonprofit group. And that's one of your income streams.
It is.
To let CASA keep working.
It does, yeah. And it takes about $1,000 to serve a child for a year. Sounds like a lot up front, but we pay way more than that at the state level for children in foster care per month. So it's really quite a deal when you think of it. But that is an expense that we accrue ourselves. Our services are given for free back to the community, but for every child that we serve, it costs about $1,000 to serve that child for a year. But we do have a fundraiser that's coming up. So our annual community volunteer brunch is kind of a celebration of individuals in the community who serve and do good for the community. It is coming up on May 18th. Now, this is our third, and previously it was held in March. But with March, you always wonder about the weather.
Right.
And the first 2 years, we got really lucky. Both days of our event, for a brunch, you want it to be sunny and beautiful. And for the first 2 years, we got very lucky. It was a great day. This year, we got a little nervous because those the ice kept coming. And so we pushed it to May. And then when March turned out to be such a dreary month, we thought, oh, we did a good job pushing it. But we'll probably keep it in May so that, you have a better opportunity of having that kind of like picnic weather, that beautiful, warm but not hot, sunny and not icy weather. But it's going to be May 18th. Tickets are on sale. They cost $35 per individual ticket, so we'll give you a little bit of a discount. You can get 2 for $50. And it's out at Nazareth at their retreat center, which is just a beautiful place to have a brunch that kind of just celebrates the goodness of the communities that we serve. Our event is a little unique. We always have 2 speakers. One is a storyteller, and the storyteller kind of kicks off the event, and it gets you a little just kind of in the emotions of what the day is supposed to bring, those like feel-good, celebratory feelings. And our storyteller is Holly Hartman, who is a local author. And she'll be telling a story that is inspiring and invigorating for our guest. And then we'll have a sit-down meal. And our keynote this year is Justice Goodwine with the Kentucky Supreme Court. So very celebratory. We're ecstatic to get her. It's her first year, and she historically is the first Black woman to serve the Kentucky Supreme Court. So in her inaugural year, to have her as our keynote when she is a hot commodity. People are hiring her left and right. Now she's donating her time to us. Because as a former judge in Lexington, Kentucky, she is very aware of what CASA does, and is very pro-CASA, very proud to have served a former CASA program and to come and speak to our CASA.
That's
so
great.
We're excited to have her, but we're really excited to welcome the community back to our event this year. Again, that's May 18th, and it's from 1 to 3, so we call it kind of an after-church brunch,
Yeah, it's on a Sunday.
It's on a Sunday. And
Tell people how they can
get tickets. Tickets are on sale through our Facebook. So we use a ticketing website to ensure that it's an easy purchase process. But to find that ticket website, they can go to our Facebook, CASA of the Lincoln Trail, click on the event, and on the event we have the link for the tickets right there, easy to purchase.
Awesome.
Well, there's something today that they can also contribute.
Oh, well, today, thank you, actually. Right after, Margie's being a good board chairman over here, reminding me of things I should bring up. Big B Coffee, which, is brand new to our community.
Yeah.
When Big B's open, now this is information I've gotten from them themselves. When Big B opens in a community, the goal of Big B is to be a part of the community and to give back to the community. So our Big B, when they opened, chose that a proceeds of their first day of sales would go back to our CASA program.
Oh, wow.
And today at 2 o'clock, we're going out to Big B, our volunteers, our staff, our board, and any of our community friends to meet the owner of the new franchise here in Bardstown and to be awarded a donation check. And we would encourage anyone who is a fan of CASA or just a fan of Big B to come out and be a part of the process. We were elated and surprised. This is not, when they announced it, our volunteers were congratulating me. Oh, congratulations, Kate, as if I did something. And I have to keep telling people, I did not do this. They chose us. An individual that works with them and helps them with their marketing and help them get established and here in Bardstown they themselves are a former board member of a CASA program.
Oh,
and so when they were considering who should they make a donation to with this first day of sales, they suggested CASA. And so then the owner looked into it, and thankfully, I guess we passed the test, and they chose CASA as the honorary recipient of this donation. And we are just thrilled to make a community partner that, we didn't have to do a door knocking. They came to us. That's our favorite kind. It's busy work running a nonprofit, so you love when a corporate friend finds you. But it's just very exciting. It's been an exciting process. It was exciting for our volunteers to see. There was a lot of chatter about it online on social media, and then offline. People have congratulated us left and right, and we keep saying, it wasn't us, it was them. But yes, today we're going to have a photo opportunity, give some coffee to people who come out, and be awarded the donation check. But it's just very exciting to make a community friend.
Sure.
And so yes, it's today at 2 o'clock, and if you're interested, you can join us. This is just come out and meet us. We'll be there ourselves. If you're interested to hear about CASA, this is a great way. Just come out and introduce yourself. I promise we won't swarm you. We'll be very friendly. But it's today at 2 at Big B Coffee.
And that's on the Old Bloomfield Road.
Yes, Old Bloomfield Road, where Hunan's used to be. So
right.
where the first Hunan's was located.
Right. Awesome. Well, that's coming up at 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
That's great. The
You know what? It's at 1 o'clock. Everyone, rewrite your calendars. It's at 1 o'clock.
I wondered about that.
I'm surprised Margie didn't say, wasn't it 1?
I thought it was. I thought maybe I was mistaken.
Rewrite your calendars. It's at 1 o'clock.
All right.
You're dealing with my brain and what I have on my calendar today. So please, if you come at 2, I might still be there. But if you want to be in the photo, it's at 1 o'clock. Just one of those days. You can see how busy I am. That is my day. Radio 11, photo at 1, meeting at 2.
Now tell us a little bit about if people are interested in maybe becoming a volunteer.
Yes.
In the program? So
to become a volunteer, the first step is just to have a conversation with us. And we have been doing this for a long time, so I promise you it's not a hard sell. It's really not hard to sell CASA, but we try not to pressure anyone to make any decision. So the first step is just to have a conversation. We'll pair you with one of our volunteer coordinators. It's just an over the phone, or if you want, you can have a face-to-face conversation, but now, in today's world, we have a lot of people who work full-time, who also volunteer. Yeah. So we've relaxed on how we used to do this. So instead of say, come meet us at the office, we can have a Zoom conversation with you or a phone conversation, but we'll just tell you about the process. After that, you'll make a decision. Is this right for me? And how much do I want to be involved? Do I want to be a volunteer? Do I maybe want to be a board member? They have 2 different important jobs. Or do I want to be a corporate friend? Do I want to help bring in sponsorships? Or can my business make a donation to CASA? And that's what we'll do to support CASA. Any of those is the right decision. If you choose to be a board member, you have a training that you'll go through with me, and I provide that kind of on a quarterly basis throughout the year. If you want to be a CASA volunteer, which is our mission workers, you want to carry a case, write court reports, report to a judge, actually serve a child. So have a child directly assigned to you that you help. To do that, you have to go through a more involved training. But I would say that overwhelmingly people really enjoy the training. The training's kind of a hard sell up front because we say it's about 30 hours of training, and that's difficult for people to find maybe the time for, but then once you're in it, it is very enjoyable. People who go through this have an interest in serving children. The training is all about what goes on in the child welfare system. We pull back that curtain, that mystique of what happens in court, what really happens at the state level, what are some of these laws that you hear about. So if you want to do that, you want to go through training, we have 2 ways that you can now complete training. One is the traditional face-to-face in-classroom training, and we do have a training starting at the end of this month going into June. The other kind of training, which is newer, is a full online training where you will go through the lessons on your own, and once a week, someone from our program, probably the volunteer coordinator who would most likely serve you, will have a phone call with you just to make sure that they're answering any questions you have, kind of do a pulse check on where you are in the training, if you found anything difficult, if there's anything in the training that you didn't understand and you want to talk to someone. And so they usually make those phone calls between Thursdays and Fridays. And they call at your time. So if you work full-time, and that's why you're doing the online training, they can call you on your lunch break. They can call you when you get off work. But it's just about a 20-minute phone call just to check in with you. And then outside of that, you go through that training as quickly or as slowly as you need to or as your schedule permits. So just for a little bit of redundancy, 2 ways of training. One is an in-classroom training where they'll come to us. It's about a 2.5-week period. You'll come to the class and we'll teach you directly. Or the second way, the newer way, is a full online way where we set you up in our Google Classroom and you go through the process and complete the lessons on your own time at your own pace. And then we do a weekly check-in with you. And there's no pressure for you to go faster, to go slower. Those check-ins are just to kind of be there as a guide for you to have someone. If you have a question, you know that phone call's coming. Someone can answer that for you.
Right. Wow. Well, and if they want to find out more about volunteering, how can they contact you or your office?
The best way is to go through our Facebook, and that is CASA of the Lincoln Trail, and to send us a message. And honestly, in the world of smartphones, we have found that that's primarily the place that people reach out to us. Even if they heard me give a talk, they'll probably end up messaging on Facebook. However, if they're a little bit more old school in their approach, or they just enjoy talking to someone, they can call us on our phone number, and that is 502-331-6325. And we've even came up in the digital age. You can also text that number, so you can call or text our office number, which is 502-331-6325, or email us at info@lincolntrailcasa.com. info@lincolntrailcasa.com.
Okay. All right. Well, Kate, we're just about down to the wire. Any final comments before we have to segue into the news?
My final comment is, in our community, especially in today's world, we run into a lot of people that are looking for a way to give back. When people are going through a hard time, and we found this over the years, they start to look for ways to kind of fill up their own cup, that everything's hard, I need to make sure I'm doing good, I'm putting good into the world. They have a lot of options in our community for nonprofits. We're very blessed with CASAs in Nelson County. But if they want to do work where they really enter the court record and they know that they've done something that has a lasting effect on a child, CASA is the only nonprofit that will allow you to do that. And it is work. So usually I tell people, if you're really looking to do valuable work, to know at the end of the day that your volunteerism meant something, CASA can give you a place. And so please find us.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's Bradford and Brooks. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
All right. Then stand by for the news at the top of the hour, and we'll be back with another show next Wednesday.